Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. Psych, good evening.
You realize it's not morning, right? What are you talking about?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you. Can y'all hear me?
All right. Can y'all hear? Good. Welcome to a midnight edition of Let the Madness Begin. Let's go, or let's get crazy Friday night. With my Sean Taylor, Victoria Baxter, and William Coleman. How y'all doing this evening?
We're doing fantastic. How are you?
I can't complain. It's a beautiful, beautiful
You said
day.
Victoria Bassett?
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Bassett.
He said Baxter. He did not say Bassett.
Oh, okay.
Don't start.
Oh, okay. Just hey. Okay.
Did I get it wrong?
No. You're right. You said it's right. It's
You
Bassett.
said it right.
I just misheard.
Oh, okay.
You know, we had this celebration going on. You know.
Yep, celebration. Yep.
You know, somebody walking the aisle. Going to the courthouse.
Why is everyone trying to marry me off? Let's go. Come on with the show.
All right, let's go.
So I proposed a question, and I'll give a little backstory behind the question. In Ukraine right now, they're asking for all the men to stay behind the fight and let the women and children run away. And throughout history, we have seen where men make a lot of sacrifices, and a lot of sacrifices can end up with them losing their lives. So the question I propose is, do you believe that sacrifice is evenly yoked? Do you believe that men sacrifice more than women? And when I proposed that question, Victoria looked at me like I was weird. So what are your thoughts?
I knew I should have asked more questions when you brought up the subject, because I know that nothing is ever just black and white with you, and it's never, like I said, you will present a scenario or you'll present like a question and then you make it seem like it's just that, and then when we actually start, your mind, it came from someplace and your mind had already, like, you saw something and it made you think, and so my mind kind of went a different direction. I didn't know exactly where you were going, so maybe I should have asked more. So I wasn't sure if you just meant like overall in general, as far as men sacrificing more. I didn't know if you meant
yes,
like in a relationship and in marriages. I didn't
all
know
of it, all the above.
Okay. Do men sacrifice more? You have to define more. Because we can even look at that example, that you're using, of course, what's the, all the unfortunate events that are going on. And of course, unless you're living under a rock and you're just not paying attention. So yeah, of course, as you said, having the men having to go fight, that is a huge sacrifice, especially when you look at it, physically, them having to go and not knowing if they're coming back, what's going to happen when you look at them, what it's going to do emotionally, what it's going to do mentally. Of course, them having to leave behind their wives and children, not knowing if they're going to see them again. So that is obviously something that's huge in and of itself. But then when you also look at the women, that's a huge sacrifice as well, even though it might be on a smaller scale. But and maybe I don't even know if the word is sacrifice for that. But when you still think about like their position, especially if, like the men were the providers and whatever else. So it's like now they're left behind with what? Because a lot of times women, we end up sacrificing so much in relationships and especially marriages. And, for those who, especially those who are like, very traditional. So maybe those who stay home, they take care of the kids, they don't work, whatever, to keep the house running while the husband is providing the foundation and everything. So I don't know. Now you have these women who they don't know if they're going to see their husband again. They're staying at home. They're taking care of the kids. Like, they have the emotional and the mental anguish and everything behind, I don't know, more I like that.
I wouldn't call those sacrifices. Now, what you just mentioned now, those are like sacrifices.
Right.
Those are contributions, for one. Because like I said, you contribute to something in a household. Now, something like a sacrifice, like you said, is something given, and you're not, in my opinion, you're not going to actually necessarily get it back in return, that one thing. You know, like you said, as a woman, I think it works both ways.
Yeah.
It works both ways. It's never, and when you say more, it depends on the moment, and it depends on that relationship as well.
Yeah.
Because you know, in you know, there's no, in my opinion, even though they say, you know, they say in the Bible, you know, of equal yoke, I think it depends on the moment in time in the relationship. Because there's going to be times where, the way things are, man, woman is given more than the other man or woman. You know, there's some more, and there's sometimes it's like that, but you shouldn't. And I think the issue with that goes wrong, we go wrong with that is there's an expected immediate return. You know, and some take sacrifice as an investment as well.
Yeah.
And then that's where we go wrong as well, because if you invest in something, you know, yes, there's going to be a return, but when it comes to a relationship, there should never be a time limit, you know, period of time. But at the same time, like I said, back to the sacrifice, depends on what you're talking about. You know, like you said, the ultimate sacrifice, men going to war is life. You know, now for a woman, she sacrificed her body to give birth. You know, knowing that her body's going to be changed forever, regardless of what she may do to get the body back to where it was before, prior to pregnancy. You know, it's never going to be the same. You know, but you know, and even then, you know, like you said, you giving of yourself to provide for that child. But at the same time, the man is making sure he may have to sacrifice certain things. Certain things goes as well to make sure that the family's provided for. So, and then, like I said, in my opinion, there's going to be times where it's the man doing the sacrificing mostly, and there's going to be a lot of times when women is sacrificed, you know, but it's never going to even out. And I think that's where we go wrong the majority of the time, you know.
And that's why I don't like that word more.
Yeah, like I said.
And then there are different sacrifices. Like I said, there are physical sacrifices.
Right.
Then it's like the emotional and the mental. And, you know, even if we get outside of this, you know, the whole situation, I mean, even, you know, Ukraine, Russia, the men having to leave behind. So William brought up a very good point, of course, as well. That's something I was even thinking about when you posed the question, Maishan. If you go back, especially when it comes to a marriage, again, more is relative, and more might be seasonal. It could be dependent upon, you know, that season and time, because something, you know, I'd even read before, it's like we don't think about a lot of the things that women also sacrifice for even a marriage or relationship. In the beginning, like we give up our last name, and, you know, we're the one popping out babies, and, you know, our bodies go through all of these changes and all of these different things that we change to go into the marriage. And especially for those who are Christians, and wanting to be godly wives, you know, even when you look at like 1 Corinthians 7, and it talks about, hey, if you're single, like, kind of stay single, because you at least get to just focus on your purpose in the Lord. But once you're married, you got to worry about your purpose and submitting to God. But now you also have to make everything about your husband as well. So it's a lot that we also do as women, you know, just for the sake of the man, the marriage, the relationship, the kids, and everything else. So I don't know. It's definitely, it's conditional.
Right. But like I said, sacrifice should never be a thing of comparison between, hey, you know, I give, you know, it should be a thing like your willingness to. Here's the way you in a way, it's a sense of submission on both sides, because one way or the other, you know, like I said, the first thing you said, you woman is letting go of is her name. You know, whether she decides to hyphenate or whatever, it's still not the name she was born with. You know, and like I said, the man he has to give us a certain amount of freedoms as well. Like he just can't go out with the boys. You know, they have to think of themselves as one whole. They just say the name, that use the word organism, but one whole. You know, one body, one mind, and soul. You know, you sacrifice that being to be one whole. And like I said, it's not necessarily a bad thing. And I think a lot of people, when they hear that word sacrifice, there's a negative connotation to it because of how it's being a lot of times noted, like you said, in the good book, as the things that were sacrificed, or things that were going to be sacrificed. And then, like I said, it should never be a negative thing, especially if you're in a relationship with somebody, because you got to let things go in order to make room for you to grow together.
I think because innately a lot of us, we're selfish as humans. So typically most people are thinking about themselves and how it's going to either benefit them or how it's going to alter their lives. So of course, like you said, I think the word sacrifice definitely has a negative connotation. Unfortunately, it shouldn't, but it does, because we're looking at it as sacrifice means you have to give up something that you don't want to give up.
But even still, you got to sacrifice a little bit of selfishness in order to
absolutely
that person. And that's even harder for people to do the sacrifice, that selfishness, to start considering yourself and consider somebody else. Because you think about oftentimes we let certain relationships go because we weren't allowing ourselves to do certain things for people. Whether it's go that extra mile for them, or you weren't willing to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and take them something to eat or something, make sure they had something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or that one day you wouldn't wash their clothes, or you wouldn't wash your clothes or wash your car. And just say something easy to mention, something nominal, and you took it and ran with like this person wasn't meant for you,
Don't even get me started on
so
that.
I mean, but I mean that's just a simple way of looking at it.
Yeah. I know. That's another that can go to a deeper. Yeah.
Yeah, you can get deeper than that. Like I said, sometimes even the littlest things mean the most, and it should sometimes. Sometimes the littlest things should mean the most to you. Because I think a lot of times we should look to those little things more, because it tells you a lot more than the more bigger things than everything. Somebody willing to pay your bills, or hey, they're willing to bring you flowers just because, and they call you because they're thinking of you, or they just love you, like had a little love note somewhere because, and you come across it, someplace you always happen to be, that goes a long way, And sometimes we don't consider the things that we're willing to let go in order to keep those things and then keep them people in our lives. If I'm making sense. So I mean, do we ever sacrifice more than our partner? I don't know. Should we? Not in a sense that you're gonna sit there and put it as if you're gonna make it a debt, as if they owe you something for it.
Right.
Because that's where a lot of times we go wrong as well as human beings, and it's our nature. We expect, hey, automatically, hey, it's a tab. Hey, I
did this, so now you have to do that.
Right, exactly. And we definitely go wrong with that numerous times.
Is it that, or is it the fact that you may want to feel appreciative for what you're doing?
I think
a lot of times I think people more so don't appreciate what you're doing, and they think that it's normal that you're doing, not realizing that depending on the sacrifice, and you're doing more in the situation than the other person, and having gratitude for what a person's doing, as it speaks volumes, and it also speaks about your character. Because if you look at a person that's sacrificing and all of a sudden you're kind of like giving them the cold shoulder, or you're like it's meaningless, then a lot of people be like, you know what, I won't do that for you again.
Right.
You have a good point. And it starts like that in the beginning, but like I said, when you start taking tabs, you know what I'm saying? Like, you start making a list, it's no longer about that. That's, and that's what I tell you, we don't make room. We take away less from the selfishness and make it more about ourselves when it comes, because when it goes from being a us to a me, that's where things start getting cloudy. And like you said, we start making a list of, hey, you remember that time when I did this for you? Well, you should be willing to do this, that, and the other for me, Or, hey, remember that time when you was running behind so-and-so and I took you back, or I let it go, and you said,
But there's also, because there's like a fine line, because it's like, like both of you mentioned the word, even being like appreciative of what someone is doing. So of course, you always want to show that, but then of course, there's going to be times at some point in a relationship where like there has to be give and take on both sides. So of course, like you want to go into it, you should go into it being selfless in any type of, of course, relationship. Like it's supposed to be, I think because we hear the word selfless and we automatically think that means neglecting your own needs. And that's not what it means. But it does mean a lot of times that you should be thinking of the other person, and it's not going to always be about you. You can't be selfish.
Right.
So it's like you want to go into it, doing things for your partner, thinking about them, whether it's, their love language, even as one of you mentioned, like once you're in a relationship or married, you shouldn't, the man not going out with his friends all the time, like all of these different sacrifices and whatever, because now you have to think about your partner. But at some point, then again, going back to the whole give and take, then it's like someone might end up realizing at some point, okay, I'm the only one making sacrifices, and it's been this way for a while. Like back to like Dominic said, it might be something where it's like for a season, where something is going on and one person might have to give more, but then some people might realize, okay, this is becoming the norm for this relationship. I've given up, like I've been doing these things, and I think that is the time when it is a little bit appropriate to now say, hey, like and I hate to even say keeping tabs or numbering things off, but I think that is when it is okay to say, hey, like I'm not feeling appreciated. Like, hey, I've been doing blip, 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 but you have not been doing anything. Like you're not meeting me halfway or what's going on. And that is where those conversations have to be had.
You doing all right? Yeah, I'm good. You want pizza? You good? You sure? Yeah, sure. Hey, you
I don't know.
Yeah, yes and no. I got it.
Will it work? Multiple conversations.
No problem. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. But yeah. No, yeah, it's a good point. We don't. But yeah, and you have a very valid point. If you're doing it out of selflessness, that's the one thing. But like I said, you say your key word, selflessness.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're doing it, like you said, and I guess I should have been more clear about it. Like you said, if you're being selfish with it, excuse the background. If you're being selfish with it, it's you really, like I said, you're doing it in order to be. I ain't gonna say put yourself over somebody else,
right?
But how do you giving it that one upness over someone, And like you said, and then I feel, and then I do agree with you. You say when it comes to a certain point, you're doing it all the time.
Yeah.
And it seems like if nobody, and my thing is, if somebody's it's one thing for somebody to be humble about it, but to somebody be outright purposely doing things like that, it continues because they know that it's, hey, you're doing it to keep the peace, to keep them around. Then yeah, that's the thing that kind of is the thing going on in the situation, or that is the thing going on in the situation. So
there's definitely fine lines, I think, in all of those situations. Very, very fine lines. I don't know.
You play too much. Excuse me. Classmate came by the room. So
my Sean, you look like your brain is just looks like your hamster wheel is just spinning.
Yeah, he's gonna jump in here in a minute. But yeah, so I mean, we all the time, we do it, and we always should do it for the selfless reason. But when we start doing it for selfish reasons, to sit there and say, hey, when that time comes when you decide to part ways, and you start telling the world what he did and didn't do for you and why you let him go, you need to start looking at. I think you should start looking at yourself, because if you continuously doing it and nothing's changed when you're doing it now, my thing is, I feel like this: if a woman is holding a man down, and because I know somebody's experiencing this now, if he can't get himself together or seem like he's making any progress from 2 to 3 years, man, hey, it might be considered time to move on. And not even that fucking long, excuse my language, but not even that damn long. Because my thing is this: me as a man myself, I can allow myself so many restarts before I can consider moving on, and that's being a man, me being who I am, and I'm gonna put this, the man on the other line have seen me at my worst and have seen me at my best. I'm pretty sure that you might have heard about my worst and best well through your sister as well, you know, in my greatest moments in my life. And my thing is, if somebody is holding me down, is continually holding me down, even I feel bad after 2 weeks.
Right.
You know, I'll be honest with you. But even say 2 months, and you ain't trying to make no kind of strides or no kind of progress, you might need to consider moving on. You know. Now my thing is, hey, you might have a false start here and there. You get somewhere for a couple of months, and hey, something happens where you stumble back a couple of steps. But if it continues to be a cycle, by all means, that y'all might consider another arrangement. Like, hey, you go your way and I go mine. We no longer connect like this. You know, hey, we'll be friends somewhere down the line, but just not right now. How about we go our separate ways? Now the situation, you know, that I'm thinking of now involves kids. It makes it even worse, you know, because now you're considering another set of parties in this cycle as well. So not only that, you putting your partner through this, you putting kids through this as well. So now they're making a sacrifice of stability, you know, having a peaceful home, because why they're going through stuff all of the time.
Yeah.
You know, everybody, you know, they don't get the sense of having well-being, you know, because they got to feel, because I think you mentioned before, if you're not sure where your next meal is coming from, or you're not sure if you're going to have a house, roof over your head, or clothes, if you ain't going to have a way to get to school, you know, that's a lot for a kid to sacrifice their well-being and having, you know, them things that should be provided by parents, you know. So
I think that even kind of goes back to Sean's original question as far as who sacrifices more, because right now I know a lot of those situations as well, right. Like where something was going on like that. And again, it's one thing to, I feel like the woman, you know, you got to be willing to hold down the man, of course, when he's going through certain things, of course, as well. But as you said, what's the time limit for it at some point? And it's like what we end up seeing a lot of times, especially primarily with Black women, is that a lot of times we'll hold a man down like way past the expiration date. And I think that is where, again, I guess we think that's us being selfless, but maybe in some ways it's actually being selfish. I don't know, maybe staying for the wrong reasons or whatever the case might be. I stayed for years waiting for him to get his
nature of the woman. Nature of the woman, it starts out being selfless, and then like you said, after a while you got to be selfish, because you, like I told you, once you start getting kids involved, it's like you're not considering their well-being, you know, whether they're your kids or not, you know, for the man's behalf, or in some sense the other woman, you know, whatever, the partner involved. I mean, you know, because when you step in these roles to be the man or the dominant one in the relationship, then you should be doing, and not to be funny or that dominant things, like, hey, you should be in a dominant position financially, not necessarily, and please correct me if I'm wrong, if you hear this wrong, you know, from either one of you, you don't necessarily, I don't say you necessarily shouldn't have a say so, but it's kind of funny to say that you have that right to say how things should be done in the house if you're not outright making a lot of the contribution or a lot of sacrifice in order to say that you have a say so in that household. Because you think about
100%, because I was in a relationship like that, and again, I did allow it to go on for years, where I made a lot of sacrifices for the sake of the household, the children, and whatever else, and again, for the sake of love, trying to keep whatever and all this other good stuff. But after a while, I was like, you don't get to say so, because I am now head of household. I am now the one who was taking care of most of these things financially. So there was times that I came home with a new car. There were times that I came home, you know, when our lease was going to be ending in 30 days, and I was giving him a copy of his new apartment key. I'm like, oh yeah, we're moving in like a month. Like, and I would just come out of everything. Oh yeah, this is where we're going on vacation. This is where we're going.
You were making all the decisions. You were making, you know, but at the same time, you were in a position to do so. You know, now it's like I said, it's one thing you fall in all hard times, and he's taking, you know, it happens. You know,
and it's years. Like, come on now.
Yeah, but and like I said, it happens to women too.
Yeah.
You know, and you said I've seen families that happen to, like, you know, the woman, you know, hey, it's not the woman was necessarily the predominant one, but she was contributing as well. And then when her end fell off a little bit, it's a struggle for a bit, you know.
Right.
But like I said, eventually he got back to the place to where, hey, she was able to do a little bit more, you know. So.
Okay, well, can we touch on that? Oh, well, I know Marshawn, I see it. Okay.
What's that?
I want to hear what Marshawn has to say. Then
I'm glad you're driving down this road because, you know, one thing I like to add, you know, how many Black men pay for their Black queens to go to college while they Black queens didn't work while they were in school? How many men took 2 or 3 jobs while their Black queens took care of a lot of stuff? You know, there's a reason why Black women probably are more educated than Black men because a lot of Black men pay for that. How many Black women right now are having Black men pay off their debt? How many Black women right now are sitting around talking about, I have my own business, but technically you don't because there's a Black man funding it, but you don't want to see them to see it. When it comes to those types of sacrifices, I think Black women do not give the Black man credit for that. I think Black women don't see the sacrifices in that. I think a lot of Black women will rather be perceived in a certain light than to say, you know what, I do have a Black man that's really doing. I do have a Black man that's actually working 3rd shift to make sure that I could go to school, to make sure that I could finish my degree, to make sure that I could get my business up and going. So a lot of Black men right now that have done that, and I don't think they're getting the respect that they deserve. You know, and I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna say it like this, and I don't want to offend nobody, but if a man has his own house, that's what he's supposed to do. If a woman has her own house, it's the greatest thing on God's green earth. If a man has a career, that's what he's supposed to do. But if a woman has a career, Black girl magic. If a man gets stocks, that's what he's supposed to do. If a woman gets stocks, oh girl, you a queen. Why is it? Hold on. Let me finish. Truth is, and we have to be realistic. What is normal for men is the greatest thing to women. So
in a sense, like you feel like certain things that they achieve are put up on a pedestal, but men are doing it all the time.
I mean, why am I congratulating you for having a house? Ain't that what we're supposed to do when you're an adult? Why am I congratulating you because you got a business? Ain't that what you're supposed to do when you're an adult? Aren't you supposed to be an adult? But it seems like we're rewarding you to finally accepting adulthood.
Oh, damn.
I mean, but if we really look at it, it's not me saying it, it's actually Black women saying it because y'all are bigging up stuff that are supposed to be normal.
Okay, I can see that.
Told me to bring my whole bottle of wine up these stairs.
Before you go off the handle and think that I'm misogynistic and thinking that I'm just a mean person, think about this. How many Black men are walking around right now like, I got a business, Black boy magic, besides one tall 7
Maybe we should start.
I don't think you're being fair.
I think I'm not only being fair, I think it's correct.
No.
Because how?
Black boy magic. That's nowhere. Hey, we get a t-shirt. Black boy magic.
No.
Black boy magic. Some of them probably.
You muted yourself. There you go.
Black boy magic.
Well, I see what you're saying, Marshawn. On the flip side, come on, we do have to think about things traditionally speaking. So again, and we talking about sacrifice and everything else. When you think about it traditionally, It is what? It is the man who works and provides the house. And of course, he provides, he protects, and the woman takes all of these things that he provides. She has a responsibility to produce something from whatever it is that he provides. But of course, that is what we a lot of times saw. Like Yeah, I mean, a woman may have been, educated or whatever, like going to college or, they might, whatever the case might be. But even a lot of times the woman stayed home. Then, of course, now what we've seen over the past few decades, women becoming, more independent. And that's another conversation and another show in and of itself, because that's something I have been studying and looking into, especially as far as Black women are concerned. Because yes, I do see what you're saying. There is a lot more women who are, again, independent and congratulating each other for, as you said, being a homeowner, buying stocks, starting that business or whatever else. And I think the reason that it's being congratulated and acknowledged is because it's just now becoming more the norm. Because now we do see, more broken home syndrome. So we do see a lot of people who are like, no, like, I'll just be single. I don't need a man, or I'll do this, or don't wait for a man to do this. Go ahead and start that business, take that trip, buy that house yourself, fly and get your passport and go wherever else. That's being encouraged a lot more. And I think it's really just the times that we are in for various reasons that I can even whatever. So I do see what you're saying. However, on the flip side, no, it's not normal to see women doing a lot of these things. I think that is why it's being celebrated more.
Okay, so if we're honest with a lot of this stuff, are those women really doing that stuff, or are they getting financial backing from men?
What men?
Oh, see, I like you brought that up. So a lot of these women be in secret relationships. A lot of these women actually be getting financial backing from their daddies. A lot of these women be getting financial backing from a lot of other men. So we need to stop this notion that they're out there doing it on their own until you can show me proof that you've done it without the financial backing of a man. You have not done it on your own. That's like a woman saying that I am taking care of my child by myself, but you're receiving child support. Obviously, you're lying.
Okay. Interesting what you're saying.
Again, I kind of see what you're saying. However, I can just say for me, and maybe it's just because the more that I grow and change or whatever, it also causes me to change my circle and maybe the people that I associate with and a lot of the things that I see. And what I see is a group of women who a lot of the things that they are celebrating, yes, they achieved that on their own. Because again, a lot of people in this generation, and especially my age range, a good percentage of us did not have their fathers in the house. And even now, the fathers are not doing anything financially. A lot of these women today, they're not even thinking about what it is they can get from a man and how that man can help them out financially. A lot of the women that I know, they are not receiving any type of government assistance. They are literally taking care, for those who have children, they're taking care of the children on their own. For those who have houses, it's because they did the work, they got their credit together, they saved, and they did whatever they needed to do. And they became homeowners on their own without the help of anyone. A lot of these women that I see are those who went to school. Now, yeah, they might have student loan debt, or maybe they did have scholarships or whatever else, but they got themselves through college. I say themselves through college, but no, without a man or even daddy paying for it. They got those degrees, they're making good money, they bought their own home, they got the nice car, whether they have kids or not, they are taking care of themselves. So I know it's not unheard of, but there are not a lot of women that I know personally that had a man to any degree provide those things for them. So, and a lot of the women that I do know and associate with, on various levels, again, the businesses, the stocks, and whatever else, it is because we are becoming, and I say we, but Black women in this generation becoming more educated, more knowledgeable, like doing the work and doing the whole level up, new year, new me, and whatever else. So,
how did that work out for Eve?
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Eve.
What do you mean, how did that work out? Eve did not have a college degree. Where are we going with this?
But she had the knowledge.
Here we go.
No, I understand that. And that's good. And that's also a great way of looking at it. But like I said, I just think that a lot of times, what is that word independent, and why is it so important? Because, and I want people to understand what I'm about to say. When the United States wanted independence from Britain, they fought for their independence. When Haiti wanted its independence from France, they fought for their independence. So how can an independent woman be with a man when the definition of being independent means you're separate from? So are y'all using the right term?
Don't say y'all.
Is the right term being used? Because you can't say you're an independent woman and be in a relationship. That's a lie.
That's not a lie. I don't know what kind of relationship it might be, but it's not a lie.
Okay, because to say you're independent is to say that you are succeeding. Mm-hmm. When the South wanted to succeed from the North, it was called the Civil War for independence.
There are a lot of women. I think you can be independent and still be in a relationship. Again, I don't know exactly how that relationship is going to go down. That's not the kind of relationship I would want to be in. I think, of course, what it all boils down to is there are a lot of women who are bitter. There are a lot of women who are hurt. There are a lot of women, who went through all of these things, and whether it's, fear and whatever else they maybe have not healed from. But that is what I realize has a lot of women with that independent mentality. I don't need a man to do anything for me, Like, yeah, I might date or we might whatever, but, I might occasionally go out, but no, I don't need a man. So those are the women who fall into that category. And now what I do see, and of course, I will say even working with some of these women to get to the root and bottom of helping them with that mentality, a lot of them, they are currently independent, but then it's like they want a man, but then they don't realize how some of their traits, antics, personality, whatever, all of those different things into one can end up ruining a lot of relationships. Your average man, not a male, but a man, let's separate the two. Your average man, they're going to have it in them to provide, protect and do whatever, and actually, be that person who's going to take care of their woman. But if you have one who's like, I don't need you to do that. I can buy this on my own. I don't need you to help me with anything, blah, 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 blah. That's going to cause, like I said, your average man to, okay, well, I'm not even needed. Why am I here? I'm going to walk away from that. And what I will also say is going back to something that you said minutes ago, it's like when a man does something, it's like, yeah, people are like, oh, well, that's what you're supposed to do. Because in essence, that's what you're supposed to do. But on the flip side, my thing is also what I always teach and tell my ladies, I am still all about appreciation, gratitude, whatever arrangement that you and that man, that y'all worked out about how things are going to go financially or whatever the dynamics of that relationship are going to be. If you are always talking about you want to be treated like a queen, then I'm going to need you to understand that the only way you can be a queen is if you have a king, and you need to make sure that you're treating him like a king. So even if that man is taking care of whatever else financial, what are you doing to show appreciation besides just opening up your legs? Like, you also have to do things for him. So yeah, that is what a man should be doing, providing and protecting. But what are you doing on the flip side to still contribute to that relationship?
And I like that you said that. And I agree with you. And I think that's where it gets lost in translation, is because a lot of men are sacrificing, and a lot of women are not appreciating that.
Yeah.
And a lot of women are not really understanding that what they're doing is not, it's supposed to be normal, fair, but this is not 1950.
Right.
So technically it's not normal. And if the man is really like a lot of men right now are sacrificing from their homes to their financial jobs and everything to make sure and accommodate women. And there's a lot of women who are just looking at them like, is that it?
Yeah.
And it's like, wow. So I always find that crazy.
Yeah, and I definitely do agree with that. A lot of men are making the sacrifices and doing whatever. And yes, and a lot of women definitely still have that mindset and mentality of, yeah, well, that's what you're supposed to be doing. Okay, well, what are you supposed to be doing? Because if he's doing what he's supposed to be doing, because that's what men do, so then what do women do? And are you fulfilling that? So I definitely see where a lot of women, unfortunately, are very, biased and just all over the place. And I'll just kind of leave that alone. Just on my second glass of wine, don't want to offend anybody.
So in a relationship, we have talked about the fact that it's not that it's one sacrifice more than the other, even though traditionally the man has sacrificed more than the woman, but we say there's seasons. So when we touch back on this, when we look at the seasons of sacrifice, if one person is making that sacrifice, it feels like they're making that sacrifice, how would you talk to the other person to help them through that? Because it's one thing to see somebody making these sacrifices, but it's another thing to actually be there to support them while they're making the sacrifice. How would you coach or talk to someone to say, hey, this is the season of them doing the sacrifice, and how would you help the other person to help support them? Say to them. So I think that's important. Is not just the person, not that the person sacrificing is more important than the other person, but if they're equally yoked in a sense, then there has to be a part during when one is sacrificing where the other person is. I'll use our homeboy Jesus Christ. That's our homeboy. You know, there was someone when Jesus was making a sacrifice, there were people still wiping the blood from his eyes. There were people still cleaning his wounds. Even though he was nailed to the cross, there were people still there appreciating what he had done. So how can we get that spouse to kind of like be like that in a sense, while that person is carrying that cross during that time frame?
I think, and that's a very good point. And it's like, it's one of those things that I know, of course, just for me coming from the professional side as, you know, like a relationship coach. So of course, in my mind, I'm like, that should be an obvious. So like, you know, like, it's one of those things I wish that people would really take the time. Again, we study and prepare for everything. We have to do it for a driver's license. Like we have to do it, you know, whether it's for getting that degree. We do all of these things to make sure that we are prepared. We don't do it for relationships and marriage, the most important relationship, the most important human relationship that you will ever have. And I think if more people would really get themselves together, and especially for marriages, doing premarital counseling, what you just meant, like that should be almost like a given and understood, like, hey, like lose this little social media mentality where all relationships are 50-50. No, they are not. They should always equal to 100, but there's going to be a season where you might be given 90 and your spouse might be given 10. There might be a season where, you know, your spouse is given, you know, 40 and 60, like, so it's never going to balance out. But I think people go into it with this fairy tale that, you know, relationships, and once you're in love, everything is just going to be rainbows and butterflies. And that is not reality. And I think, and that's where, when it's time to sacrifice, that is where a lot of people, you know, there ends up being tension and whatever. Like I know of even a situation right now where that's kind of what's going on, you know, with the married couple. And I'm not even going to go into too much details, but it's like, it's still trying to get one of the persons in that relationship to understand, like, you knew this going into the marriage. Like there were certain things, but you didn't do your homework with certain things. But right now you're being very selfish in this situation. So I don't know. I just wish everybody would prepare more. I know that's not realistic, but that would just be my thing. Like if anyone was to ever come to me with that, which people have, you know, again, in a relationship or a marriage, it's like, hey, this is normal. Like, and now this is what you just have to understand. And of course, communicate to your partner how you're feeling. Did y'all discuss this ahead of time? Like whatever that sacrifice is, it because someone is, you know, military or going to school or, you know, starting a business, like, was that discussed beforehand? And if not, and if you're already in the middle of it, okay, cool. It's time to have a come to Jesus meeting. It's time to sit down. It's time to talk. It's time to communicate, have a plan, letting that person know, like, you know, of course, what you're still going to need during that time, but it's you also understanding, okay, hey, like, this is what we agreed on. I'm going to be here for him or for her or whatever else, and making it through that. Communication will clear up a lot of that, in my opinion.
And you brought up seasons. Because Will brought up something too, and I think that's it's a slippery slope. What is the cutoff, or as you use the expiration date of grace? And I'll use that term.
I think it depends on the situation.
Okay. Because
there's so many different ways that someone can sacrifice. So it's like, again, is it because someone is starting a business? It's because someone is having a rough time financially? Is it because someone just can't really seem to get themselves together? Is it because someone is going to school? There are so many different sacrifices, and I think that's what ultimately is going to determine what the timeline or time frame is going to be. But it still needs to be communicated ahead of time. Like whatever, like, I don't know, like hard times, that's something that's kind of hard to calculate that, I think. I don't know, and I'm sorry, maybe I'm also a little sexist, but I think when it comes to like hard times or something, like, I think it depends on who fell on hard times, you know, exactly like what's going on and whatever, and then like what is your, I don't know, what is each person, I don't want to get too deep into that, but it
No. Because from listening to you, if the man falls on hard time, he doesn't have the grace period that you allow the woman to have. Is that what you're saying?
I didn't say anything.
She said she didn't say anything.
I didn't say that.
Okay.
Oh, she ready for that slippery slope. That's what
And again, because I'm just gonna be honest, yeah. So I do have my opinions on certain things, and I've made it very clear that I am definitely more of a traditional person in the aspect of how I view a lot of things, even when it comes to gender roles and stuff within a relationship and within a marriage. So I don't expect everyone to have the same views as me. I don't teach and coach my clients, okay, well, this is what a man should be doing or whatever. Of course, I'm going to look at stuff from the biblical standpoint, because we do still see scriptures where it says husbands are to do this and wives are to do this. So I will always bring those things in. But of course, my own personal stuff as to where I stand, I don't ever try to force that on anyone. But yes, as far as the hard times, I'm definitely someone who is all for the man being, like I said, provider and protector. And I know a lot of times we hear that and we automatically go to providing being just financially, when it's so much more than that. But I do see financially as being a large part of that. Of course, and whatever dynamics y'all work out as far as percentages, amounts, or I take care of this or you take it, I don't know. But yes, if the man is the one who falls in hard times and tradition, like he's the one who has been handling everything, then you should still have it. Okay, well, I got to make something happen because I still have a family to take care of. I vowed that I was going to, take care of her, and I made this promise and whatever, and she has been dependent upon me. So you would think that he would naturally have that. But at the same time, it's not for the woman to just sit there and, belittle and poke and, and just be selfish about the whole situation, because you are still to support. And I don't know, it's just so much to that. I don't, I'll hush. Dominic, you talk, Dominic.
No, I mean, you have a valid point. Yeah, like I said, we're going to continue to beat a dead horse with what we're talking about. I mean, it's just, like we often say that, but I'm gonna put it in the sense, just do what you can afford. Not just not financially, but just emotionally, physically, mentally.
Yeah.
Just do what you can afford. And what you willing, because there's nothing wrong with being because there's nothing wrong with being selfish, but you just nothing wrong as long as it's not a dominating thing where it's always you being selfish. It's always only about you. Because like I said, because like I said, when you start turning your selfishness into selfishness, where it's beneficial to, only you all the time, but the majority of the time, that's what things, in my opinion, they can tend to go, go awry, as they say,
But I don't know if I can agree with that, because I think once you're in a relationship, I don't think it's ever okay to be selfish. I don't think that you are supposed to just completely abandon your needs and abandon yourself and just make everything about your partner. But when you think about the word selfish and what it means, like you literally, like you go into it like thinking about yourself. But I think initially that is why you have to know who you are, know what you value, know what it is you need and whatever else. But knowing those things is your responsibility to pick a partner.
But the thing about people don't consider that first.
Right. That's their fault. They should.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know themselves before they decide to take on marriage, much less a serious commitment in a relationship. So my thing is, like I said before, you got to sacrifice some selfishness. Not all. And like I said, I'm not saying to where you being selfish, like you. It's hard to put it. It's not. It's just describe it, and not where you're.
I need an example.
I'm trying. Yeah, it's hard to give an example. It's
Okay,
it's
I got one, and I'll use this.
Yeah,
I think it's a pretty common one. Let's say you have a partner that won't go back to school.
Okay.
And y'all come to the table and you say, okay, they're like, this is something I want to do. I got to get this degree and XYZ. And you're like, okay, well, let's look at the books and see if we afford it. So you talk to your partner and you say, well, right now it looks like we can afford part-time.
Okay.
But your partner comes back to the table and say, no, you're not supporting me. I want to go full-time and I should be able to do this. That's why I consider selfishness, where you start putting yourself before the whole family to the point that you're like, hey, screw the books,
Right.
It's all about me.
Yeah, that I can deal with that as an example. I could deal with that example. Like you said, there's no real compromise. There's no real, hey, you're not considering other factors, like you said, because your finances, like you said, the finances say here that right at the moment we can only allow part-time. And they're not saying that the whole time it's got to be part-time.
Right.
It's just if right now we got to start out part-time. Right. And I like that. That I can live with that example for now. I can't really think of a better one than that. I can live with that one. But yeah, when it starts getting in the way like that, man, we because like I said, the thing you're considering for yourself is you feel it's gonna be a betterment of the whole. It's not that, and that's what I also mean. Even your own mental and spiritual and all that, because sometimes eventually, Victoria, when you walk down the aisle and you have a house, you and your loved one, you're gonna want to date to yourself to just kind of get your mind right every now and again, ever so often. And same thing with him. It's not necessarily that you going on a vacation or it's a day to yourself.
Yeah.
That type of deal. That's what I mean. Little things like that. Not necessarily like you. Like I said, you doing a whole nother lifestyle.
Right.
That's nothing like that.
Maybe because I just kind of categorize like that a lot with like self-care. Like you can't neglect yourself. Like you still have to take care of you.
That's what I mean.
And like I think it's just because the word selfish has such a negative whatever behind it.
It's not necessarily because you think about it a lot of times. You think about some past relationships. Sometimes you should have been more selfish.
Yeah.
But you weren't because you thought you were being, and that's just the nature of who we are. We do the hindsight 2020 thing all the time. Well, damn, all this time, she was doing this and she was doing that. I support her. I turned the other cheek, whatever. And here we are now. She's where she's at and I'm where I'm at, type deal, or, well, damn, all this time, you said, hey, I could have been going to school and I was supporting her and she wasn't doing what she's supposed to be doing. He wasn't doing what he's supposed to be doing it. I'm asked out, but.
So, I said I kind of go into everything like kind of with the selfless approach.
Yeah.
But one thing I also always say from the relationship coaching standpoint is that because I know we try to make everything about like, oh, that's like hashtag relationship goals, and we'll look at celebrity couples. I'm like, no, you just got to look at like what real love kind of consists of. And one of the things that should be a part of your goals is, like I said, give and take. Every relationship has to have give and take. But I also say like real love, it also comes with being selfless. So yeah, be selfless.
Yeah.
But at some point, again, it kind of goes back to if you feel like you're being taken advantage of, you're not being appreciated, you're the one doing all the sacrificing. If you realize at some point that you're doing a whole lot of giving and they're doing a whole lot of taking, that is when it's a problem. And like I said, that's when a conversation needs to be, first of all, because why did you even let it get to that point? But I get that happens sometimes. But that's when it's time to like have an evaluation of the relationship and like, all right, things got to change and we're just not going to continue on this way.
So I like that y'all talked about that, because that does happen a lot of times. I think it happens because it's the reverse effect of looking at your past relationships. So if you look at your past relationships where you feel like you was too selfish and you get into a new one, sometimes you're like, I'm just gonna, just try it this way. And sometimes that leads you down a path of you feeling like, well, dang, if I sacrifice another thing, I'm gonna be giving blood.
Yeah.
Because you feel like you just continuously sacrificing. And a lot of times people don't realize is that other people see that sacrifice and they're like, okay, we see you doing, we understood in the beginning, but now they start looking at like, or when is it going to stop, or when is it going to be matched? So I do agree with that. And I have an off the wall question I'm gonna ask in a little bit, but let me ask y'all this. When can you say enough is enough to the point where you feel like you can't move forward in this? Like your sacrifice is just too great to make. Like it's beyond.
Okay. So for me, and I should have been more, and it shouldn't be just a financial thing as well. And I need to step back what I said earlier. When it affects all parts, your mental, your physical, your spiritual, mental, physical, emotional, as well as things that are going on outside of you physically, like your finances and other stuff. We get toxic like that. And like I said, it depends on the person. Like I say, it depends on what you can afford in all the avenues. Oh yeah, it's time to cut loose. You know, because and I think that's where we as men and women, it's like we get away from that. We don't, and not saying it's the truth. It's either, hey, I don't want to be alone. I don't want to start all over. What the next guy is going to be like. The thing is, you should know and we don't. We don't remember the person we were when we met them. We forget about who we were before we met them. Now there is a purpose behind dating. There's no dating with a purpose. There is a purpose behind dating. Get this clear. And that's the thing. We don't. You always hear the saying that a woman knows when she's gonna sleep with a man, the minute she meets him. Okay, that's cool. And this is a thing that and use this, Victoria, if you want, because I mentioned it to in a conversation I had before. My thing is, what kind of relationship if you have if sex weren't a thing? How would you go about being with someone when sex is no longer in the picture? If that person could no longer function sexually, how would your connection with that person would be? That's how you should start.
Those things, like it varies. I would still say really based on each individual, because I know that we say that I think sex is an important part of the relationship, but it's not for everybody.
But you see, a lot of times what we do, because man, we do it automatically. We automatically know if we most of us, we equate that to a relationship. Most of us do. A lot of us do. We'll equate that. Whether it's no matter what, that always determines the factor. That always determines the degree of the relationship with the men, with most males that are not in touch with themselves a lot of times, and even those that are, they'll make it right. But either way, and if a lot of times if you can't see yourself somebody beyond that factor. Like I said, their looks and all that. A lot of times you might need to have them move on. You might need to move on, because a lot of times we sit there, we keep somebody around to see if they're worth the wait to be with them sexually, but we're not taking our time to get to know them. In a sense, we're not getting acquainted with who we may consider as a future partner. Because there's always the sign, and another thing. The signs are always there. They don't just pop up out of nowhere. And that's the thing I used to tell a relative of mine all the time. Oh man, she's crazy. She's so crazy. No, dog. No, dog. She never just turned crazy. She was always like that. You just chose whatever she had going on that you're so infatuated with.
Chose to ignore it.
Exactly. We choose to ignore it. Oh, well, you know, let me go ahead and say, and the sex must have been so good to you that you overlooked that them 2 times that girl flipped on you because you probably went over and ran into a relative or something and their perfume rubbed off on you and you came to her house and she flipped the fuck out on your ass. Excuse my language, you know? Or that one time that cousin called you and, you know, she's talking loud on the phone at 11:30 in the evening and, you know, and she thought she was talking to some other girl down the street and it's your cousin, you know?
But that's y'all's fault because a lot of men have even said the whole, I've heard a lot of men, I mean, I don't mind a girl who's a little bit crazy because that's when the sex is good and they'll start bringing all that in. So it's almost like they're willing to sacrifice their mental health and peace.
But to go back to what you said, the sex. And like I said, we don't oftentimes look past the sex.
Mm-hmm.
We don't. Like I said, that'll keep the blinders on a little bit longer to the point like, you know what, the sex ain't that good to do that much craziness.
I'm so glad I've never been that person that's ever stayed with something crazy because of good sex.
Then they get so well invested that to the point that you don't want to get rid of them, or you can't get rid of them, you know, or you end up attached to them because you create a baby with that individual. That happens. Those things happen all the time.
Yeah, I don't care.
You know. Yeah, so I mean, we don't take the time to get to know ourselves and then get to know who we're letting into our lives before we decide to start moving them in, giving them responsibilities of being the stewards of our relationships along with our partners, like I say.
But those are like the 2 biggest reasons why dating is like kind of crappy the way it is today, because exactly what you just said, this is something I talk about a lot, because people go up there, they don't know themselves, they have like no self-awareness at all.
Right.
And then they go into it just ready to kind of jump on in and find their person and commit and whatever. They don't take the time to even get to know that person. It's like, let me just see if they kind of check off some of these little things, which I always call the halo effect, where it's like, as long as they can do this,
right.
So it's like they'll overlook everything else that's underneath it because at least that person checked off. And that was me because I came out of a relationship, like I said earlier, years of someone who I was the breadwinner. So that was ultimately years of me saying, okay, you still haven't gotten it together. I'm out. So to even answer your original question, like when is it? You know when you're sick and tired, you know when you've had it. And for some people, it could be a couple of months. For some people, it could be weeks, months, it could be years. For me, it took years. And then, of course, once I finally did start dating again, that was like the number one thing for me. I need someone who is going to be financially stable because I'm never dealing with broke again. But then, of course, for years, again, that halo effect. So me not realizing that, yeah, I dated a lot of men who were financially stable. I also dated a lot of men, of course, and I spent, of course, now over 5 years being abstinent. But at the same time, it was like, okay, yeah, sex wasn't even in the picture, but I was still, and they would there and still provide as long as they could provide. But of course, they were probably getting it from somebody else, especially if we were not in a committed relationship.
Right.
But like I said, dating or whatever. But yeah, I don't know. So it's definitely one of those things where people are going, hop on in, but they don't know themselves and they don't take the time to get
the key word is you was in a relationship. You did say you dated and then you were trying to get married. You were still dating, being in, you know what I'm saying? You were still dating. A lot of us go that, oh girl, I've been alone too long. You'll settle, and all of a sudden you're ready, and don't get me wrong, if you decide to go out there and dip your toe in the water every now and again, that's cool. But don't put your whole foot in and all of a sudden, you know what? Hey, I need a swimming partner. You dive in and come to find out they swim with floaties on, and you expect them to hold you down, and show you how to swim. That doesn't work, man. Fly, So I mean, yeah, so I mean that's understandable what you did, and I mean that's commendable, but a lot of us men or women don't think like that. Right. We don't know ourselves before we know someone else. Mm-hmm. That's why I mentioned that one time we recorded about the whole thing about jumping into something else to make you come out of something, and also expand on that a little bit. And there's nothing wrong with thinking he's the one, but you can't make him the one. You got to make sure, give it time for him to make sure.
Yeah.
Because remember, like you said, God's gonna put that person in that realm with you, even though you may feel it, and he may not be the person for you. You know, he may seem like the one. You know, you may look like the one, but he may not be that one. You know, because like I said, a lot of wolves come in sheep clothing. You know.
But that just kind of also, like I said, it depends, because a lot of women, again, especially when you have certain things that you have not properly dealt with and whatever else, so then you go in and you're just desperate to have the love, the connection. And as you said, you'll try to force somebody to be the one. I realize a lot of females, they end up getting stuck in, as I always call the false alarms and fantasy building.
Yeah.
And especially if you have an anxious attachment style, something that I've been studying so much lately, but so many people, they have an anxious attachment style. It's like as soon as they start dating someone, they're now immediately, they got butterflies. Now they think they're in love, and oh my God, it's like day one, and I think I met the one, and he's so amazing, and he's awesome, and then you become clingy and you do the absolute most. And I'm like, what is going on here? Like, what?
Yeah, that happens very often. Very often.
And there are definitely reasons for it that, you know, some people don't understand, because it doesn't make sense. And I hate to say to the average person, but there are definitely a lot of reasons why that takes place. And especially, I'll say me, myself, I was definitely that person, you know, years ago when I was on the dating scene. And it's like, I always say I had honestly a boatload of many different issues that I was completely unaware of. You know, when you got daddy issues, you got fear of abandonment, there's rejection sensitivity, when you got an anxious attachment style, low self-esteem, self-love deficit disorder, like all of these different things that'll cause you to, you have no identity like of self. There's no self-awareness, but the only thing you know is that you're desperate for love. You want a relationship, you want that connection. Or like you meet a man and it's like 2 weeks in and you're already planning the wedding.
Right.
You don't even know it. Like you're already trying to figure out like how your name is going to look with his last name, what your kids might look like. But women will really take themselves.
Right.
And it's scary and it's sad, but it's not as uncommon as people think it is. I will say that.
Right. So yeah, girl, let's say, you know what? Where we going? Yeah, we're just going to date to David's. Why are we going to David's? To try our wedding dresses.
All right. Cool. So now I got two curveball questions.
Oh, here we go.
But I'm gonna go with the first one. Really?
Having a party.
Really?
Dominic, first of all, you need to unmute it. You're on mute. What is going on here? No, we can't hear you. Your microphone is muted.
Oh, this is one of my classmates. Yeah.
My classmate.
This is my main man right here.
What's going on, y'all?
Good morning. You know they feel good. Who's this one?
This is Victoria.
Oh. Hi, how are you?
I'm fair to Midland. Fair to Midland.
Your Fifth Amendment?
Sergeant
Fair
Midland.
to Midland.
Oh, I thought you said his Fifth Amendment. I was like, what is going on here?
Fifth Amendment. Yeah, I'm that too. So are you. We're all Fifth Amendment.
Oh,
No.
I cannot.
What y'all get into?
I plead the fifth.
No.
What y'all do? I'm waiting on you to do what? Anything. You know, like last night when we went to the club.
Dominic, you are not being professional. I cannot right now.
I was trying to get you in trouble. They didn't want to win.
No, she's not my girlfriend.
I know.
You're taking me in trouble. What y'all get into? I can finish doing it.
What you got?
drink my wine. I don't even.
The barbecue pizza, barbecue.
Okay.
Unconditional pizza. Okay, my bad, y'all. Let's get back to it.
My Sean has 2 questions.
I know. But
Okay.
you have.
We'll be down here right
Like, what we having a conversation, relationship stuff.
Okay.
You been married for?
I've been married almost 27 years.
27 years.
I got a little something to say about something.
Hey,
Oh, God.
right. And leave because he's on the phone.
My people.
It was just so.
No, you're fine. We got about to head to the Oh, on the call? Okay. All right. Oh, he said you're cute.
Oh, tell him I said thank you. I look very bad right now.
It's all good. Okay, but I'm sorry. I mean, so what's the 2 questions?
Yeah, my Sean, you probably forgot them.
You better write them down. You better write them joints down, man.
So
Sean, what's the question, though?
the first question is, would you allow your spouse to be in a wedding party and walk down the aisle with somebody of another sex?
Absolutely.
Why?
Why not? To walk that, like, as in, like, my husband's the groomsman. And,
No.
I mean, not groomsman. What do you mean?
Hell yeah, but you know what?
Yeah, he's a groomsman, and then he's walking down the aisle with one of, I guess,
The bridesmaids.
yeah. You
Yeah.
allow it?
Yeah.
Why?
Because that has nothing to do with me. That's somebody else's wedding, and obviously he is close with this person, whether it's a
I'll be off here.
brother, friend, cousin, or whatever. They're like, hey, I want you to be a groomsman. Traditionally,
No, you
That's
good,
what
man. It's not
happened.
like that kind of party.
the groomsmen and the bridesmaids, they walk down the aisle together. Like, that's not gonna bother me.
Okay.
And even with me right now, like, no, I'm not married, but we both actually, my boyfriend and I, like, we both have several weddings that we have been invited to this year alone, weddings and vow renewals and whatever else. And
Okay.
we've both already, like, you're my +1 and this is what's gonna be going on. And like, I don't care about that.
I would. I
He
would.
came
I
to the
would.
weddings and he
You know
has to
what?
walk down the aisle with someone, but
I make sure I'll be the flyest one up in there.
exactly. So no,
Okay.
that don't bother me.
I'm representing what? Let me sure the
But I've
cleanest.
been a bridesmaid in several weddings before where it's like, whether it's like I was not even from there or the guy was not from here, like, it does not bother me.
Hey, my son, you remember Kiki wedding, right? And the girl, I walked down the aisle with you. I tried to holler at her right there while her man was watching, because he had some old scuffed up shoes on, jacked up suit. Hey man, look, that was just my nature at the time. Shoot, don't look at me like that. Don't judge.
But why that question? Why would that be a problem? Would you have a problem with your wife walking down the aisle with someone? Like, that's a weird question.
No, it's not a weird question because it sounds harmless and I like the way it sounded. But number 2, if you don't have a problem with that, then would you have a problem with him speaking to another woman?
I mean, speaking how?
Just speaking.
Having a conversation? No,
Having a conversation.
No.
Okay.
no, I wouldn't. Definitely.
But I'm also not a jealous person like that either. So, and I think if you have a problem with your spouse, your significant other, even having a conversation with someone of the opposite sex, you got something you need to work on. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, because I feel you should be secure enough. Now, it's one of them things where we having one of them questionable conversations.
Yeah, exactly. It's something. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Just
another.
to see them talking or something. No, like, I talk to Eric. Like, I'm a people's person, and
Because
like, of course, he knows. Like, my best friend lives 2 houses down. Paul is a guy. Like, and I'm at Paul's house all the time. A lot of times, all time of night. Even when all the neighbors hang out together, a lot of times me and Paul are the last 2 standing. He knows that. I'm somebody. I will hold a conversation with anyone at the grocery store. What, like,
yeah, like I said, if you're not with somebody who's secure enough to lie,
exactly.
would you having a conversation of the opposite sex? Shoot, what about the same sex? What if you know?
Yeah, this day and age. Yeah.
Hey, like I tell you, people don't care. Like people be shoot.
That
Like,
is true.
Cause I you never know that your best friend of that other orientation might have a thing for you, and hey, you saw the Bobby Brown story, Whitney Houston and her quote unquote friend.
Girl.
Homegirl.
Girl. Oprah and Gail, you know what I'm saying? Never said
Question
chance.
stuff like that. You come on. Now that's something, yeah. You question, not to say that was the case or whatever, but that's how
Right, right.
But but still, yeah, we do questionable things and questionable stuff like, oh well, damn, well, yeah, what was that? Well, yeah, we was at the hotel. You was at the hotel doing what? Well, you know what time it is, right? You coming in the door. It's the next day. The next day in the morning. Now we was out at the club and
Everything is definitely situational, and it definitely it all depends.
But it's just all
great.
what you're doing, because I've heard people like they do, they hang out with their friends for the day, type deal, and the husband or the wife was cool with it, which I think is odd too. Y'all going to couple spas and doing couple stuff, but okay, whatever, floats your boat.
Who's doing couple stuff? What?
Like, say if you're doing like I knew somebody who used to hang out with his homegirl, and they used to do stuff like little spa days and shit. I was like, yo, what about your wife? Oh no, she's cool with it, this, that, and the other. Talk to the wife. Yeah, I'm cool with it all the time.
Of course she cool with it, because while he had to spa with her, she had to spa with another man.
It gotta be, because there ain't no way in hell.
Sometimes when you hear people say,
I said it gotta be. That gotta be the only reason, because ain't no way in hell. No, my man is not.
And like I said, they just might be cool like that. I don't know. I didn't get to. I just looked at it like, okay, then hey, whatever.
I mean, unless it's one of those things where the homegirl that he's going with is like full-fledged, like, I hate to say, like, I was homosexual, like completely lesbian, completely batting for the other team, has no interest in it. I don't know, but
there's those. Now let me start, because if I say that, they're gonna come after me.
I said, don't do
I'll
it.
say this. I don't believe that. Let me rephrase this. You use the term what you can afford, and I believe in this situation is what you can afford.
Right. I just
whatever you are allowed to do, that means that you have to allow the other person to do. And sometimes you got to ask yourself, if it's worth the cost? Yeah. Because sometimes people can do things a little bit better than you.
Okay.
And in situations like that, chances are his wife could do a little bit better than him. Because historically, women could probably do it better than the man. So I will always say, and stuff like that, you have to use good discernment, as they say. Has it always been practiced with me? No, I'll be the first one. I haven't always practiced good discernment. But however, I would say that you have to figure out what you can afford. The reason why I brought up that question was because when we look at relationships, we always use the term respect. Mm-hmm. And why I understand, hey, there's nothing wrong with walking down the aisle. I understand there's nothing wrong with that because of the setting. However, what makes that different than going to a club?
What do you mean what makes that? Well, I don't know. I see that as a big difference. Like, again, I feel like if you have issues with either one, then you're still someone who has some insecurities and whatever else. And obviously you don't trust your partner, no matter what. Trust is the absolute most important part and aspect to a relationship. So if you have a problem with it, one, it's showing that there is no trust there. Two, it is showing that you are insecure / jealous. But
why would you go to that conclusion instead of looking at it from the standpoint of, it doesn't always have to be a negative thing. Like, you don't have to say, I don't trust you. However, I can trust you, but that don't mean I have to trust the environment. And I think a lot of times people have it confused. They think that you automatically don't trust the person. The person may be trusted, but the environment may not be.
But if I trust you, that means I should be able to trust you no matter what environment you are in. I trust you. Okay, I'm not thinking about whoever's in that environment.
I love what you said.
I trust you. Now I still see the wedding and the club as being two different things, but I think it still boils down to trust. Because like I said, if my boyfriend or husband, if you're walking down the aisle with a bridesmaid, I'm not concerned. Well, what does she look like? Why can't you just walk down and y'all have to? No, because that means you are in somebody's wedding, somebody who loves and thinks about you enough that they want you to be a part of their special day.
Right.
Again, that goes back to being selfless. This has nothing to do with me. This has something to do with somebody who matters to you, and you are simply escorting someone down the aisle.
Yeah.
That is,
I mean, I agree with you.
So I don't care about that at all. Like that, go have fun. Clubs, everybody is different when it comes to that. Again, I do think it's one of those things. If one person is going to the club, the other person, it should not be a problem for them to go either if that is their thing. It goes back to what you said as well, respect. Like, okay, like, are you going to the club all the time? Like, do you just disappear like for hours? Like, are you coming home at 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning? Like, that's when it's just showing respect and courtesy and stuff. And it has to be whatever y'all agree on.
Yeah, it should be
boundaries. Like, that's communication.
Yeah, it shouldn't be none. It shouldn't be something. I don't know. I don't know, but it should be whether or not it should be a routine thing. You know,
right?
That's just always questionable.
Right. Because when I'm done with y'all, I'm about to go change my clothes, and I'm going to the club tonight. I'm about to go see Christy and Belinda, and I'm just going to see what they got going on for a little bit tonight. But again, I let him know.
Christy, a DJ now?
I don't know. She's doing something with BP tonight.
And why wasn't we invited?
Because Christy
literally texted me like hours ago and was just asking me like, come into the Ritz tonight. And I'm like, yeah, I'll come out. I said I was going to bed early tonight, but I'm going to go out tonight.
So why wasn't we invited?
Do you want to go to the club in a little bit?
It's too late now.
No, it's not. It's 9:30.
For me, it's too late.
Oh, I don't know what to tell you because I'm about to do something about this face and this hair and get cute. And I'm going out tonight. And I made sure he was aware. He's like, cool. He's like, I think you should. Every so often, but we've talked about this as well before.
Right.
As far as, people in a relationship.
But that's the same. Like, y'all had conversations to put you in a sense to where y'all can do that kind of things. Like I said, that doesn't happen. Some people, because when people, first thing somebody would say is there ain't no ring on my finger. But my thing, if you're serious about one another, and hope y'all had that talk about, not within the first week or so, but sometime I want to say that, hey, this is where we are, and not necessarily commitment. But yeah, I'm gonna start.
I think that whole comment right there, ain't no ring on my finger. First of all, because that is immature, that is manipulative.
It is.
And if you have that mindset now, you're not going to automatically change when you become a spouse and say I do. So you already are somebody. But anyway.
But you know what? It's always being said though.
Yeah, you're right.
Always being said.
Yeah.
Ain't no ring on my finger.
And what's crazy because it's not just women who say that as well. It's I hear a lot of men who are.
Oh yeah. I'm not just saying that. Believe me when I say it's not just about.
I mean, I got a girlfriend. Yeah, I got a fiance. And yeah, I proposed. Yeah, but
even until married. Even it goes back to what Marshawn says. I often think this, and not to start a whole nother conversation, but we'll take this up another time. If I don't have your name and you don't have my name, even though we're in that kind of relationship, it doesn't make it official until that's done. That's been said and done. So, but even on that point, like I said, if Christy Baxter was to marry William Coleman, become Christy Coleman, like I said, that's when the terms change. So if Victoria Baxter becomes Victoria Baxter. Victoria Bassett. Yeah, that's when that dynamic changes. I guess that's when the dynamic changes.
Those are stages.
Those are examples, by the way. So let's not sit there and say that's what it is. But yeah,
there are stages.
Yeah, to that. Yeah.
So like I said, there's casually dating, and there's exclusively dating, and there's committed relationship. I think each stage should have boundaries, obviously, for those who desire marriage or whatever. Like obviously, marriage is the ultimate commitment, and that comes with instead of whatever. But
those should be conversations that should be had together, not.
But I still feel but even in a committed relationship, because I would say there are relationships and then there are couples. Like I think sometimes we throw around the word relationship. Just because you are in a relationship with someone does not mean that it's committed or super important. I'm in a relationship with both of y'all, but it's not a romantic relationship. A relationship is a relationship. There are relationships and there are couples.
Victoria will have a conversation with Vicky. Victoria had this conversation, but not with Johnny. And then when you tell Johnny the conversation you had with yourself, he's looking at you dumbfounded, and it becomes you don't want to be with me? Or no? We didn't have this conversation. Now, Johnny might feel a little trapped to say, okay, we together. Instead of putting, it happens, or vice versa. Johnny and Jonathan might have that conversation. And then Victoria didn't have it. Victoria decided to go out to the club at, until 3 o'clock in the morning. she come in one day, that coming at 3 o'clock in the morning, you know, Johnny upset, you know, he put, you know, hey, you know what? Hey, just like I said, they know. Victoria says, ain't no ring on my finger. Leave me alone. Go away. Get out my house. Stop calling me. Hey, no,
I do have a question. So my second question, it'll be my last question of the night.
Oh, okay. We never get to the second question. Go ahead with the second and last question for the night. So she can get ready to bust it open in the club.
When it, yeah, because I got to make sure you get to the club.
Yeah, she got to get to the club.
How important is it to have that name change, and not only have the name change, but the right way of having the name change? Because you mentioned hyphenated, and then you mentioned maybe a person hasn't changed their name yet. Is it more, and I understand it's just a name change, but as far as how it looks and the purpose of it, how important it is to have the right.
Okay, so being divorced at the time, and I thought back on it, and I'd look at it because in the beginning, when it was brought up before I decided to get married, it was just like a thing of no, it's either my name or nothing at all, you know, no hyphens, whatever, because of the way things have always been done, you know. Now, I look at it like, you know, I kind of looked at it the wrong way. Now, she would explain it to me in the sense of why, you know, I kind of probably would understand a little bit better, you know, because at times, you know, we can be a little sexist and a little chauvinist and, oh, well, you know what, this is the way things have always been done and will continue to be done. That's just me. You know, maybe I could a little bit more flexible of why, you know, on you know, why, you know, and not to just say I just would have said, okay, let's do it, hyphenate your name type deal, you know, but I often felt a lot of times things were done because you see other people do it, or it's the thing to do at the time.
That's fair.
You know, but also I felt like, no, shoot, we in a Christian traditional marriage, you say, you know, Joseph and Mary, you know, Joseph and Mary didn't take on Mary and her maiden name plus whatever Joseph's name was. Let's say Joseph Carpenter. She was Joseph. She was Mary Brown. She didn't say, Can I be Mary Brown Carpenter?" She said, "No, Joseph, no. You be Mary Carpenter." You know, but maybe if she would have spoken, "Hey, you know what? I'm feeling some kind of way. You know, my family's name will be carried on. I just want to make sure. Would you have a problem me be calling myself Mary Brown? You know." Mary Brown Carpenter, you know. Now she said, hey, you know, because Beyonce decided to be, you know, Beyonce knows Carter. I think I should be doing the same thing because she doing it. Oh, hell no. You're going to take the full name on. That was my attitude at the time, you know. But at the same time, I say, you know, if you're doing it for the right reason, I can understand that. And
I think that definitely, it goes back to a conversation having to be had. Right. I feel like, of course, traditionally, that is what you're supposed, you know, the woman takes the last name. I also know some men who don't care as much about that. And then I know some women, you know, that's something that matters to them. So I definitely, a conversation, if the man is like, no, like that is something that's important to me and da-da-da-da-da, but the woman is saying no, then of course that's already going to show there's going to be an issue. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's definitely a case by case thing. Just
I think
I do believe in it being tradition and whatever else, but again, I think it matters about those two being on the same page about it.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think, you know, and I think at the time we weren't on the same page. We don't on the marriage thing, we weren't fully on the same page, you know, because, you know, I don't say I regret it. It's just I could have been a little more considerate when it came to that.
Gotcha.
You know, so consider a little bit more, you know. So you're gonna be Victoria Baxter Bassett soon?
Shut up. Where are you getting Bassett from? I don't even know.
I don't know. I don't know.
And that's something I've thought about, like, because I'm like, okay, do I want to change my last name?
Right.
I don't really, and I think really just because like the legalities of it and having to go through the whole like all the paperwork, that's the kind of stuff that really intimidates me more than anything. But as far as just like taking on his last name, I don't mind like using it and you know, certain things. And of course, I do think about like the social media aspect and you know, my business, stuff like that. So of course, even like via my coaching business, I use Baxter for everything. I've published 7 books already underneath, you know, my last name. So when I think about those things, it does kind of, put me in whatever. But going back to our topic, it's all about sacrifice. And if my husband or my fiance is letting me know ahead of time that is something that absolutely matters to him, and if you're my fiance, that means I obviously give a damn about you. I want to be in your life forever. So if he now voices like, hey, this is important to me, and yes, I expect you to, truthfully, that would be a no questions asked thing for me, because I think holding on to my last name is really not that important. And I would ask him like, hey, can I get a little wiggle room as far as time when it comes to doing all the legal stuff, when it comes to having to, and again, just the hassle of it all. But as far as like publicly taking his last name and whatever, and I have no problem with it.
Okay, nothing wrong with that. So
So
my son, let me ask you a question. I'm about to flip it. Would you take on your wife's?
Ooh.
hell no.
Damn. I mean, not even for the,
No.
Damn.
One man who did that.
Yeah, men, and it's a very rare thing for men to
Yeah, very rare, but I know a man who did that.
Right.
No, like
Okay.
and let me say it like this.
Nah, too late now. You just
No. I'm sticking to the no. I'm
Go
sticking
ahead.
to no.
Go ahead.
Hell no.
Don't try to clean it up. Go ahead.
No. I'm not gonna clean it up. I'm just gonna say it like this. I don't know the circumstances of why a man would do that. So I would never
maybe
judge.
Maybe he sits on the toilet when he pee. I don't know.
Shut up.
Even if you do.
So let me just say to answer that. So the man that I know who did that, he did it because
He sits on the toilet when he pee.
his wife was the only child, and like the father was like, very successful and whatever else, legacy and all this other good stuff. And still carrying on that last name of her father was very important to her. And for the husband, again, he was one of those men, he was like, it's really not that big of a deal, but we are married, so I still want to, show something as far as that change. And they came up with the idea that he would actually, he hyphenated, or not hyphenated, but he just kind of got rid of his middle name and then took his last name, made it his middle name, and took on hers. And I almost said it out loud, but I'm not going to put his business out there. But yeah.
No. Like, I would never knock him. I understand that I do understand from his standpoint.
Yeah.
However, she could have did the same thing. So I would never understand why a man will want to do that. But I never been put in a situation to actually go. So I can't say.
I think it goes back to the whole sacrifice and selfless. And I guess maybe for him, it was like, okay, obviously this is important to you. Still being attached to this name. And again, just whatever, as far as like her family and all that other good stuff. So I don't know. So it was something that she did not really want to let go of that last name, but still wanted to join with her husband. And they agreed, but we're still going to show our union and marriage. And
no, I mean, I have no issues with that. One thing.
Yeah, I mean, that was weird, but
but one thing I would say that I think is very important is your relationship is your relationship.
Right.
So it doesn't have to make sense to me, just like my relationship or my marriage does not have to make sense to anybody else. As long as me and my wife are in agreement and we show a united front.
Yeah.
Then that's what's the most important thing.
Yep.
And I think that we get caught up in the weeds of looking at stuff like that. Like in his situation, we'll get caught up in the weeds of looking at that.
Right.
Or in somebody else's situation, get caught up in the weeds where instead of just saying, you know what, as long as they're united front, because at the end of the day, if they die, they're dying together.
Yeah.
If they make money, they're making money together. So whatever they're doing it for the best of their family. So I never judge anybody.
Even if it was Oprah Winfrey, you wouldn't change your name to Marshawn Winfrey?
No.
Shoot, I might consider that.
But for me, and I'll say this, and maybe they say pride goes before the fall, and maybe that's just what I'm willing to die on, and it's not because I don't think that there's not a reason for that. That was a great reason, but for me, I can compromise. Hyphenate it. She can hyphenate my last name. It was for me, but that's the hill I'm willing to die on. I'm willing to actually not marry a person.
Okay.
Walk away.
Stay there, my friend.
I get that. I do. I don't think there's anything wrong with men who feel that way. So And I don't see that as necessarily being a pride thing. I think, again, but I'm also, as I said, someone who's very traditional. So I just, when you look at just traditionally speaking, historically speaking, what it means for the man and whatever else, I get it and I understand that. So.
Right. Okay, cool. That's what's up.
But that's why I say, it just makes, as long as it makes sense for them, because be honest with you, if they move out of this area, who's going to know? Mm-hmm. Unless you dig deep, unless you search, Mm-hmm. So that being said, I mean, your relationship is your relationship. Yep. And I hope, everybody, do what's right for their relationship. And, yep. And that's what's the key. Just do what's right for your relationship.
Yep.
Right. Okay. Got anything in closing, Miss Baxter?
In closing, what I would say is I love really just the way that you ended that whole thing off. I think at the end of the day, when it comes to sacrifice, providing, protecting, whatever, at the end of the day, it's all about what works for you and your partner. I know right now we have a whole lot of relationship experts and social media experts, and everyone's spinning little random stuff for likes and to go viral, telling you a real man this and a woman should never this. You have to do whatever you want to do in that relationship as long as you both agree on it. That is the only thing that matters. I don't care. There are a lot of stay-at-home dads now, and guess what? That works for those couples and for those marriages. Do whatever the hell works for you and your relationship and your marriage and keep everybody else out of it. People are always going to have an opinion. And it's typically the ones who are either single or in a relationship but still single. Married and still single and lonely, and I'll just be quiet on it.
All right. How about you, Mr. Coleman? What's your last and final thoughts?
I like what y'all said. That's a good point. Yeah, very valid point. You too. How you ended it, yes. Do what works for you. Stop listening to these not YouTube. I'm sorry. These Facebook poets and therapists. Girl, he don't value you if you don't. This and that. You depend on what values you. Hopefully, we have enough esteem of yourself, self-esteem, to know your own value, not according to what they tell you your value is on Facebook. If you gotta go on Facebook for somebody to tell you your value, or if you putting it out there that you value is such a thing, it's not necessary for the world to know what your value is. You should know your own value.
Yeah.
You should validate it yourself, not everybody and mama liking or commenting on what you said, because you might feel you might not feel that way a week from that same moment. You may feel something totally different, So we don't, like I said, we don't live what we speak a lot of times, and we don't speak upon what we know. And we don't, and like I said, a lot of times we definitely not living what we speak as well. And I'll leave it at that.
And I agree with both of y'all, and that's a good way of summing up everything. You got to live your truth in your relationships, and your relationship has to be your truth, because that's who you committed to, from being in a serious relationship to being married.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with that being said, we gotta let the guests go and get prepared to be beautified in the club, and gotta let another guest go and get prepared to be beautified with some other young men and women who are serving this country.
Dominic, where y'all going? I'm coming.
I don't know where they're going. Whatever they decide to do.
I'm gonna tell you where not to go.
What's that?
Manhattan's. Do not go to Manhattan's. I don't know if it's still open, but do not go to Manhattan's or anywhere that's in Newport News.
Well, I'm not Newport News. I'm in Petersburg. So
okay, yeah, then definitely say nobody goes to Newport News. It is banned. Newport News is off limit. Manhattan, if it's still open, you should close it. It's a cancer.
Oh, okay. You know what? On that note,
y'all have a wonderful night. Be blessed, and we're out.
All right. Talk to you later now.